In 455, Vandal ships sailed from Carthage, reached Rome, and stripped it bare. 79 years later, Roman warships appeared outside the Vandals' own front door in Africa. That shouldn't have been possible. This kingdom had already destroyed a bigger invasion and ruled these waters for generations. So what changed? Why did one campaign shatter an entire kingdom in months? To find out, we start not in Rome, but in Roman Africa, where the Vandals first tasted real power. By the early 5th century, the Western Empire was splitting into rival armies, rival courts, rival kingdoms. The Vandals were just one of the mobile coalitions pushed and pulled through that collapsing frontier world. In 429, their king Gaiseric led them from Spain into North Africa. Legend says a Roman general invited them in himself. Modern historians treat that convenient betrayal story with real caution. Africa offered something far more valuable than another battlefield: a fully functioning imperial economy. Its estates grew grain and oil. Its ports linked Italy, Spain, and the Eastern Mediterranean. Rome could lose a distant territory and survive. Losing Africa was a different kind of danger. After years of fighting and an uneasy truce, Gaiseric moved again. In 439, his forces took Carthage, the greatest Roman city left in western North Africa. Carthage didn't just fall, it transformed the Vandals overnight. Revenue, docks, warships, crews. This new kingdom didn't burn Roman Africa down. It moved in and ran the machinery it had just conquered. Gaiseric now commanded a power Rome hadn't planned for, one that could strike anywhere in the western Mediterranean. Vandal control reached Sardinia and Corsica, while Vandal fleets raided imperial coastlines at will. By 442, Rome accepted it. The outsiders now ruled one of its own imperial heartlands. Then Roman politics gave Gaiseric an opening no fleet could buy. In 455, Emperor Valentinian III was murdered, shattering the marriage pact binding his family to Gaiseric. Gaiseric sailed for Italy. Rome had fame, churches, centuries of treasure, and no real defense. For roughly 2 weeks, the Vandals stripped Rome's wealth and carried its people away as captives. It was brutal, organized plunder, but the evidence doesn't support mindless burning later hung on their name. That name, vandalism, came more than 13 centuries later. Rome's enemies won the longer war over memory. The real Vandal Africa kept minting coins, kept trading, and kept its writers and scholars working. It wasn't peaceful. Homoian rulers and Nicene Christian subjects clashed, bringing repression and political division. This was never a barbarian camp, never a wasteland, a post-Roman state ruling Roman cities on its own terms. Rome wanted Africa back. In 468, East and West combined for an enormous naval expedition. Ancient totals aren't reliable, but every source agrees: ships, soldiers, money on a staggering scale. The Armada reached Carthage's waters. Then Gaiseric asked for time to talk. When the wind turned, Vandal fireships drifted into the packed Roman fleet. Formation became fuel, the invasion scattered, and Rome's attempt to retake Africa collapsed into humiliation. That victory hid the kingdom's real weakness. Too much power had been built around one extraordinary king. Gaiseric died in 477. His successors inherited Carthage and the fleet, not his grip on every rivalry beneath it. Over the following decades, court politics, disputed succession, church conflict, and outside pressure kept piling up. None of it alone could destroy the state. Together, it made the next crisis far more dangerous. In 530, Gelimer overthrew King Hilderic, a king who'd kept friendly relations with Emperor Justinian. Justinian demanded Hilderic's restoration. Gelimer refused, handing the emperor his justification. The Romans who returned in 533 came from Constantinople, the eastern half of the empire that still called itself Rome. Their commander was Belisarius, leading roughly 15,000 men, nowhere near the Armada of 468. The timing was brutal. A Vandal force and much of the fleet were away, crushing a revolt in Sardinia. Belisarius landed south of Carthage and moved carefully up the coast, fleet close enough to keep him fed. He forbade his soldiers from plundering African towns, liberation, not conquest, or so it was sold. Gelimer planned to trap the Romans near the 10th milestone outside Carthage. The Vandals called it Ad Decimum. 3 Vandal forces were to strike from 3 directions at the same moment. They didn't. One column arrived too early, a second was cut down, and Gelimer walked into a battle already falling apart. Procopius says Gelimer stopped when he found his brother's body. Whatever the real reason, the moment to finish, Belisarius slipped away. The Romans regrouped, struck back, and drove the Vandals off the field. Carthage opened to Belisarius soon after. The war wasn't over. Gelimer called his brother Zazo and the army back from Sardinia. In December 533, that rebuilt force met Belisarius near Tricamarum. Roman cavalry struck the Vandal center again and again. Zazo fell, and the army came apart. Gelimer ran west, abandoning his camp, his treasury, and what was left of his authority. After a winter trapped on Mount Papua, the last Vandal king surrendered in 534. Justinian paraded Gelimer through Constantinople. Vandal soldiers were scattered, recruited, or removed from lands they'd once ruled. Others stayed and were absorbed into the population. The kingdom vanished, but its people did not. Roman Africa wasn't safe either. Mutinies and wars with Moorish powers followed the conquest. The Vandal monarchy, the state that once sacked Rome and drove off its navy, was finished. It fell not from weakness. Political rupture, a diverted fleet, and 2 lost battles exposed how much power rested on one family. The Vandals survived Rome's biggest attack. They could not survive Rome finding its moment. Every empire has a last day. Subscribe to find out what actually killed the next one.